Chosen one. Stop for a moment. Heaven has pressed pause on everything around you, not by coincidence, but by divine orchestration. What you're hearing right now is not noise from the algorithm. It's a whisper through the static. You were never meant to blend in, never meant to live unnoticed. The world sees you walking through another ordinary day, but heaven sees a divine interruption unfolding. You think you just happened to scroll here, but heaven planned this encounter long before you woke up. While you rush through schedules and distractions, heaven leans in and says, "Listen, there are moments when time bends and eternity speaks, and this is one of them. You felt it, haven't you? That stirring in your chest, that sense that something invisible is shifting, like the air before a storm. Heavy, yet holy. You can't name it, but your spirit recognizes it. Heaven is moving pieces that your eyes cannot see. You may think you're stuck, but God is quietly rewriting your next chapter behind the curtain of the ordinary. I once knew someone, another chosen one like you. Her life looked simple on the surface. Work, family, endless repetition. But one night, while driving home from another long shift, she heard a voice within whisper, "I am calling you higher." It wasn't dramatic, no thunder or fire, just a whisper in her spirit. Days later, she began noticing strange coincidences, doors closing, unexpected peace in pain. What she didn't realize was that heaven had already shifted her timeline. Everything that once made sense began to crumble so that something divine could take its place. That's what's happening to you. The interruptions you call delays are heaven's way of saying, "Not this road." Every unanswered message, every silence that wounded you, it was redirection disguised as disappointment. Heaven interrupts not to punish, but to protect. It is written in the book of Psalms, chapter 37, verse 23. "The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delights in his way." Let that sink in. Your steps are ordered, even the missteps, the late nights of confusion, the prayers that felt unanswered. They were still within divine choreography. You are not lost, you are being led. Imagine this: you're a seed planted deep in dark soil. The darkness feels suffocating, but beneath the surface, something sacred is happening. Roots are forming. Pressure is birthing purpose. You mistake the soil for a grave, but heaven calls it preparation. You might be thinking, "But I'm tired." Yes, the chosen often are, because you are carrying more light than you realize. Your very existence disturbs darkness. Every time you stand up after falling, every time you choose kindness over bitterness, the enemy loses ground. The weariness you feel is not weakness, it's evidence of the war you're winning. There's a quiet revolution inside you. God is stripping away everything that no longer fits the next version of you. The friendships that faded, the plans that fell apart, none of it was random. You are being refined for royal responsibility. Pause. Feel the stillness. That silence isn't emptiness, it's heaven recalibrating your spirit. You're not behind, you're being aligned. The unseen hands that hold galaxies together are also holding you right now. Chosen one. Remember this: before breakthrough comes interruption. Like a painter who smudges the canvas before revealing the masterpiece, God sometimes distorts the picture to deepen the beauty. Maybe lately you've been saying, "Nothing is working out." But what if everything is secretly working in your favor? What if rejection was just redirection to the right door? There is purpose in every pause. Heaven's timing is not late, it's layered. You'll look back and thank God for what didn't happen. Because what you call waiting, heaven calls weaving. So listen. When everything seems uncertain, don't panic. Heaven never sends an alert without a reason. If you're feeling the divine interruption, it means you are next in line for instruction. Before this section closes, hear this invitation. If your spirit feels this message, let it echo. Comment 777 below as a sign of alignment. Like, share, and subscribe, not for numbers, but to awaken others walking through their own divine interruption. The interruption has already begun. Soon, you'll understand it wasn't disruption, it was a divine appointment disguised as a delay. And when that divine moment unfolds, you'll see that every silence was sacred. Every delay was direction. Heaven was never late, only perfect in timing and purpose. Now rise. Chosen one, lift your head, breathe deep, and walk forward. The pause is over. Your story moves again. Written by the author who never fails. You don't see it yet, but heaven has been moving in the shadows on your behalf. The unseen realm is alive with motion assignments being released. Obstacles quietly removed. Paths gently cleared. What feels like silence is not absence. It is the deep hum of divine activity. You are standing inside a story that is being written by invisible hands. Sometimes it feels like nothing is happening. You pray. You wait. You wonder if your words are reaching past the ceiling. Yet, in that stillness, something beyond your understanding begins to stir. Heaven often works like the tide receding just long enough for the shoreline of your faith to expand. I remember a young man, a chosen one, who thought God had forgotten him. He'd lost his job, his home, and even a few friends who couldn't understand his sudden isolation. For months, he saw no progress, only doors closing one after another. But one night, half asleep and weary from worry, he dreamed of standing in front of a giant clock with no hands. He woke up in tears, realizing that heaven was showing him the truth. God's timing is not measured by human clocks. A week later, an unexpected opportunity appeared, one that perfectly aligned with the skills he'd built during his season of loss. The job not only restored his finances, but placed him in an environment where he could touch countless lives. What seemed like stillness was strategy. What looked like delay was design. You too are in that unseen movement. The spiritual realm is busy, even when your world feels motionless. Angels move on command, but heaven waits for your heart to align before releasing what's next. Sometimes the delay is not in the promise, but in your readiness to carry it. The Word of God declares in the book of Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 9, a man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. Think about that. You plan, you dream, you make your lists, but there's a divine hand steering you away from traps you don't even see. A conversation that never happened, a door that never opened, a yes that turned into silence. Each one was a shield in disguise. If you could see the invisible, you'd fall to your knees in gratitude. You'd realize that the things you lost were never meant to stay, and the things you've been waiting for are already on their way. Like the current beneath the ocean surface, unseen, yet powerful. God's movement surrounds you, even when your eyes can't trace it. Picture a chessboard. The player who wins is the one who moves with patience, not panics. God is that master strategist, sacrificing a few visible pieces so you can win a greater unseen victory. Each apparent setback is a setup. Each delay hides a divine redirection. You may feel lonely right now, but solitude is heaven's classroom. When the crowd disappears, revelation becomes audible. When no one understands your vision, it's because heaven hasn't released the language for it yet. You are learning to trust the invisible, to find peace in process, and to see purpose in what you cannot control. Sometimes God hides movement inside stillness so that pride cannot claim the glory. He allows things to stay quiet so you can grow strong in faith instead of frantic in fear. The silence of heaven isn't punishment, it's protection from noise that could distract you from destiny. Listen closely. If you've been wondering why things feel heavy or delayed, it's because heaven is aligning variables beyond your sight. The people you need are being positioned. The doors you'll walk through are being built. The timing that looks slow is synchronization at the highest level. Even nature understands this rhythm. The seed underground feels pressure before it feels sunlight. The caterpillar dissolves into nothing before becoming a butterfly. The ocean retreats before its most powerful wave returns. You, too, are in that divine pattern of unseen transformation. Don't fear the silence. Don't despise the waiting. Every unspoken prayer is a whisper heaven has already recorded. Every tear has been counted. The unseen world is not ignoring you, it's preparing you. Soon, what was hidden will be revealed. The same silence that felt unbearable will become the foundation of your unshakable peace. You will look back and realize that heaven was never still. You were simply being positioned for revelation. Stay in alignment. Stay faithful. When the unseen finally becomes visible, it won't just surprise you, it will make sense of everything. There's a shift happening, and you can feel it deep inside. It's subtle but undeniable, like the quiet turning of the earth beneath your feet. The conversations that once thrilled you now feel empty. The places that once fit you now feel too small. You don't know when it began, but something in your spirit refuses to stay where it used to be. You're not losing your passion, you're being redirected. Heaven is changing the frequency of your life, tuning you to a higher sound. What you call restlessness is actually recognition. Your spirit senses what your eyes can't see yet. There's a moment in every chosen one's journey when comfort begins to decay. You stop fitting into circles that once celebrated you. The doors that opened easily start closing without explanation. It's not punishment, it's positioning. You're being separated from what's familiar so you can recognize what's divine. I remember a woman who went through this very shift. She said, "It felt like everything around me was fading: my job, my friends, even my joy. I thought I was breaking down, but I was actually breaking through." In her quiet hours, she realized that God was pulling her out of rooms that couldn't hold her next season. Months later, she looked back and saw that the discomfort was the birthplace of her transformation. That's how heaven works. It hides destiny inside discomfort. You don't notice it while it's happening, because transition rarely announces itself politely. It feels messy, unpredictable, and often painful. But when you stop fighting the process, you start flowing with it. The Word of God reminds us through the writings of Hosea, chapter 6, verse 1. Come, let us return to the Lord. He has torn us, but He will heal us. He has injured us, but He will bind up our wounds. And every shift begins with a tear. Something must break so that something new can breathe. The tearing is never meant to destroy. It's meant to create space for healing. When life feels confusing, when everything once stable begins to shake, understand that it's heaven's way of rearranging your foundation. You are not being rejected. You are being re-rooted. You can't grow fruit on the same branch forever. The air around you changes, first subtle tension, strange timing, people drifting away. Then your thoughts start to shift. The things that once kept you entertained begin to drain you. Even your prayers evolve from asking for outcomes to asking for alignment. This is spiritual maturity. This is what happens when the soul starts hearing heaven's rhythm. Sometimes you'll feel like you're walking through fog. You can't see far ahead. But you keep moving because something inside insists there's more. That's the essence of faith, not the absence of fear, but the decision to step forward despite it. You might not realize it, but this is heaven's gentle invitation to trust again. You are being invited to step out of what's predictable into what's promised. When God shifts your atmosphere, it's never to punish you, it's to prepare you for expansion. Picture a bird in its nest. For a time, the nest feels safe, but as the bird grows, that same safety becomes restriction. The mother stirs the nest not to harm the bird, but to awaken its wings. That's what God is doing with you. He's stirring what was once comfortable so you can learn to fly. You're entering a sacred transition, one that not everyone will understand. That's okay. The chosen rarely find validation from the crowd. You are learning obedience in obscurity, faith in confusion, peace in change. And soon, the shift will make sense. When you feel uncertain, remember that heaven always whispers before it moves loudly. The unease you sense is not warning, it's awakening. Now, pause for a moment. Let your spirit answer honestly. Can you feel it? If you can, then you're not alone. You've simply stepped into the current of transformation. Comment, "I'm shifting" below. It's more than just words. It's a declaration that you're aware of the movement, that you trust the unseen hand guiding you. When you type it, you're agreeing with heaven's process. You're saying, "I may not understand this, but I choose to follow where you lead." End of. The shift is already in motion. The old doors are closing, not because you failed, but because you've outgrown them. The new path will reveal itself only as you walk. Trust the unknown. Chosen one. Heaven is not asking you to have all the answers, only to take the next step. And as you take that step, everything hidden will start aligning. You'll notice peace replacing panic, and purpose emerging from pain, clear proof that heaven never shifts without meaning or divine design. You didn't realize it at first, but every struggle you've endured was training. Every disappointment, every delay, every closed door, it all carried a lesson hidden within it. Heaven has been shaping your endurance quietly, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows where character is formed. You see, power without preparation can destroy. So God, in His mercy, concealed you, while others raced ahead. You were being refined. You thought you were forgotten, but you were actually being fortified. The hidden seasons were never punishment, they were protection. There was once a young man who felt invisible. Years of hard work brought no recognition, no breakthrough. He prayed for promotion, but heaven stayed silent until one day, an older mentor said to him, "You're not waiting on God. He's waiting on you to become strong enough to carry what you asked for." Those words struck him deeply. He began to see his hardship differently, not as abandonment, but as apprenticeship, and that is your story too. The long nights of tears were training your faith muscles. The times you felt unseen were teaching you to stand without applause. Every time you chose to keep going when quitting was easier. Heaven took note. According to what is written in the book of James, chapter 1, verses 2 to 4, consider it pure joy. My brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Faith isn't built in comfort, it's built in confrontation. You cannot grow strong in still water. The waves you feared were never sent to drown you. They were sent to teach you how to stand. You've carried burdens that others couldn't even see. You've walked through storms that would have broken lesser hearts. And yet, here you are still breathing, still believing, still becoming. That resilience is proof of divine training. Heaven doesn't waste pain, it repurposes it. Think of a sword. Before it gleams, it must endure fire and hammering. The process doesn't destroy the metal, it defines it. Likewise, your trials are shaping the warrior within you. Every blow, every heat, every strike is heaven's craftsmanship, making you sharper for the battles ahead. Sometimes you wonder, why must it hurt so much? Because true strength is never born in ease. The chosen ones are trained through pressure, not praise. God doesn't prepare you in comfort. He prepares you in contradiction. The season you're in now, the one that feels slow, confusing, maybe even cruel, is actually holy ground. It's where heaven is testing your consistency when no one's watching, when you still pray without results, when you still love without reward, when you still give without recognition. That's when heaven sees the truth of your heart. You may feel like nothing is changing, but the growth is internal first. Seeds break in darkness before they bloom in daylight. You are expanding in silence, maturing in mystery, becoming more like the one who called you. I want you to remember this image, a tree planted near water. You only see its trunk and leaves, but underground its roots are stretching deep. Unseen, yet unstoppable. The deeper the roots, the higher the growth. That's what heaven has been doing in you, deepening your roots so your destiny can rise without collapsing. And though it hurts now, one day you'll look back and thank God for not giving you what you asked for when you weren't ready to handle it. Because divine delay is not denial, it's development. Do not rush what heaven is refining. There's no shortcut to spiritual authority. What's being forged in you through fire will not break easily later. The ones who skip the process often crumble under pressure. The ones who endure it become unshakable. So, if you find yourself in another test, remember, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. Heaven trains its warriors differently. The pain you feel today will become the strength someone else stands on tomorrow. You are not being punished, you are being prepared. Every quiet battle, every hidden victory, every lonely night is shaping a vessel that can carry divine power without pride. Hold steady, stay teachable. Heaven is still training your hands for war and your heart for compassion. And when the training ends, you'll rise not as the same person, but as the refined version heaven always intended. One day soon, you'll step into the very moment you've been shaped for. Everything that once felt heavy will suddenly make sense. And you'll recognize the wisdom behind every delay. You'll realize that heaven was never trying to break you, it was building you. Every scar will shine as proof that divine training always leads to unstoppable purpose. When heaven tests your loyalty, it doesn't come as thunder or earthquake. It arrives softly through the absence of what you thought you needed. It comes in the silence after a prayer, in the friend who stops calling, in the plan that collapses, right when it looked certain. The test is not about loss, it's about allegiance. God asks, not with words, but with circumstance, will you still follow me when the music fades? This is where true loyalty is revealed, not when the blessing flows. But when the promise is delayed, you've been through that season, haven't you? The one where your heart ached to understand why nothing made sense. It's because heaven was measuring not your strength, but your surrender. The greatest test for a chosen one is whether you can remain faithful when nothing feels fair. There's a story of a man who served faithfully for years, unseen and underappreciated. He gave his best, even when no one noticed. Then, one day, everything he built seemed to fall apart. He thought he'd failed, but months later, he discovered that the very collapse he mourned had made room for something divine, a new beginning that aligned perfectly with heaven's plan. That's what loyalty looks like. It stays when logic says to leave. It believes when sight says to quit. As the scriptures remind us in the book of Job, chapter 23, verse 10, "But he knows the way that I take. When he has tested me, I shall come forth as gold." Oh, you are being refined like gold, purified through fire that doesn't destroy it, defines. The loss you fear may actually be the proof that your heart is still pure. Heaven will test what you love most, not to take it from you, but to teach you that love must never outweigh obedience. Sometimes, the hardest act of faith is letting go, to release what feels essential so that something eternal can take its place. Like Abraham standing over his promise, knife trembling in obedience. Heaven often waits until surrender becomes stronger than sentiment. That's when provision appears. You might not realize it, but you are standing in such a test right now. God is watching how you respond, not to punish, but to reveal what's been growing inside you all along. Loyalty is quiet. It's the choice to keep your heart steady when the world whispers doubt. It's the moment you choose truth over comfort, purpose over popularity. Picture a candle burning in a storm. Wind howls. Darkness presses in, but the flame refuses to die. That's you. Each gust of disappointment only reveals how anchored your faith really is. And here's something beautiful. Heaven notices loyalty, even when no one claps. Even when your good works go unseen, heaven records every quiet act of endurance. Every yes, whispered through tears, becomes a seed of promotion in the realm you cannot see yet. It's not easy. There will be days when the weight feels too heavy, when silence feels like abandonment. But loyalty means trusting that the same God who led you into the fire will also walk you through it. You will emerge purified, stronger, humbler, clearer. Do not mistake testing for rejection. You are not being pushed away. You are being drawn closer. The test is not proof of God's absence, but His investment. Heaven refines only what it intends to use greatly. And when you come out of this, You will carry an authority you didn't have before. Your words will hold weight because they were forged in the fire of loyalty. You will speak peace into chaos because you've known what it's like to stand still in storms. Now, if this message stirs something inside you, if your spirit quietly says, "That's me," then take this as your moment of reflection. Let your next act be more than agreement. Let it be alignment. Maybe that looks like lighting a small candle tonight and whispering a prayer of trust. Maybe it's sharing this message with someone who's standing in their own fire. Or maybe it's as simple as deciding, "I will stay loyal, even here." End quote. Think of every act, your listening, your reflection, your decision to stay connected as a ripple in a divine river. Each one moves light further into the world. When you like, when you share, when you subscribe, don't see it as a task. See it as a symbolic gesture, like planting a seed in sacred soil. It's your way of saying, "I choose faith. I choose fire. I choose to keep the flame alive." End quote. Heaven doesn't demand your loyalty. It invites it. And in that choice, freely made, you become a living testimony that faith still burns bright in the darkest hour. Everything hidden is surfacing now. The masks are slipping. The pretenders are being exposed. And truth, no matter how uncomfortable, is stepping into the light. You might not have asked for clarity, but heaven is giving it anyway. Because this season isn't about comfort, it's about cleansing. You've noticed it. People you once trusted, beginning to show strange inconsistencies. Words that used to sound sincere now feel hollow. The same places that once felt safe suddenly feel heavy. Don't ignore that shift. Discernment is not suspicion. It's heaven's alarm that something unseen has changed. This unveiling is necessary. You cannot carry counterfeit connections into a consecrated calling. What God is preparing in you requires truth around you. The lies may crumble. The illusions may fade. But what remains after that fall will be pure, loyal, and lasting. The Word of God reveals in Proverbs chapter 20, verse 27, "The spirit of man is the lamp of the Lord, searching all the inward parts of his being." That's what's happening right now. Heaven is searching hearts, yours, and those connected to you. The lamp of truth is shining into hidden motives, revealing who is for you and who was only around you for benefit. Don't be surprised if people start falling away. You're not cursed. You're being cleared. When elevation comes, separation precedes it. Heaven removes distractions before it releases destiny. Sometimes the pruning feels like punishment, but it's really preparation for increase. Remember the image of a sculptor chiseling a statue. Each strike seems violent, but every piece that falls away reveals beauty beneath. God is doing the same in your relationships, in your environment, even in your thoughts. What's being removed isn't loss, it's excess. I once met a woman who said, "The lonelier I became, the clearer I could hear God." Her story was full of people who promised loyalty but disappeared when her storm began. At first, she begged for those relationships to return, but later, she realized the silence was holy. It was the sound of heaven protecting her from what looked supportive but wasn't secure. That's what this season feels like. Strange quiet, fewer faces, but peace that finally breathes. You're not being isolated. You're being insulated, guarded for the glory that's about to rest on you. When counterfeits fall away, Don't chase them. If something was truly yours, it wouldn't have to be forced. Let what leaves go. The truth never fears distance. The ones meant to walk with you will recognize your growth and align without manipulation. In this divine unmasking, don't allow bitterness to grow. The goal isn't revenge, it's revelation. You're not meant to prove anyone wrong. You're meant to walk in right standing with God. The exposure isn't about them, it's about you seeing clearly so that peace can finally return. This moment might feel lonely, but it's sacred. You are stepping into a life filtered by truth. No more false friendships built on convenience. No more conversations that drain your light. Heaven is exchanging imitation for authenticity. Imagine a garden after a storm. The leaves that couldn't endure the wind have fallen, but the roots remain, stronger, healthier. That's you. What has blown away wasn't meant to stay. What's left is what will last. You don't need to explain who walked away. You only need to keep your spirit aligned. Those who left made room for those who will love you right. You'll soon see that this season of loss is a divine reset, a pruning before blooming. And when that peace settles over you, you'll feel lighter than you have in years. You'll laugh again without fear of betrayal. You'll speak freely without pretending to be smaller than you are. That's what authenticity feels like. It's freedom with no performance. So, if this message touches something deep inside you, if you feel heaven confirming what's already happening, then pause. Breathe. Recognize that this clarity is a gift, not a punishment. You are being aligned with truth, and truth is never cruel. Now, as a sign of quiet agreement with what heaven is revealing, comment shmoneh shmonim vishmoneh below. Not for luck, but for renewal, because the number 8 represents new beginnings. When you write it, let it mean this: I release what was false, and I welcome what is real. You are entering a season where light will expose lies and loyalty will rise to the surface. What falls away now only makes room for what's meant to grow. And when that light fully breaks through, you'll realize nothing truly good was lost. Only what was false fell away, so the real, the loyal, and the lasting could finally find you. The weight you've been feeling lately isn't ordinary tiredness. It's the weight of the mantle, an invisible cloak of responsibility that heaven has been placing over your shoulders. You didn't ask for it, but you've been chosen to carry something sacred. Something heavier than comfort, but holier than you imagined. Every chosen one must learn the art of carrying glory. It doesn't shine like gold, it presses like gravity. When heaven crowns you with authority, it first tests if your humility can bear the weight. The greater the calling, the heavier the garment. That's why your spirit feels stretched, even when your body is still. It's like walking with invisible armor. Others see you smiling, but they don't feel the pressure beneath your ribs, the ache of carrying both calling and compassion. You're learning how to move under divine responsibility while still remaining human. That balance is where heaven's strength meets your surrender. The scriptures speak through Isaiah, chapter 61, verse 3, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. That garment isn't light, it's layered with purpose. Every tear you've cried has been woven into its fabric. Every test, every lonely night, every silent prayer, they've all been threads in this sacred robe. And now, You're being fitted for what's been promised. There's a reason you've felt stretched between peace and pressure. Heaven is enlarging your capacity. Before God can trust you with influence, He trains your heart in endurance. Power without purity corrupts. But power, refined through pain, becomes compassion. You're not just being anointed for position, you're being entrusted with people. I once met a man who said he could feel destiny pressing on him like a physical weight. He described it as walking underwater, every movement slower, heavier, deliberate. But over time, he realized that pressure was teaching him how to breathe deeper, how to rely on strength beyond his own. When he finally stepped into his purpose, the weight didn't disappear. It transformed into rhythm. That's the secret of the mantle. It doesn't crush you when you learn to walk with it instead of against it. The pressure becomes partnership. The burden becomes a heartbeat that synchronizes with heaven's. You might wonder why others seem carefree while you're constantly in internal warfare. It's because you carry something they don't. The oil that rests on you attracts both favor and resistance. Every true mantle draws attention in the spirit realm, both divine and dark. That's why the warfare intensifies before your breakthrough. Imagine a lighthouse standing in a storm. The waves crash. The winds rage. Yet the light doesn't stop shining. It can't. It was built to withstand what others would flee. That's you. The mantle on you demands resilience because your light guides others who are still lost at sea. The heaviness you feel isn't weakness, it's evidence of heaven's trust. God gives His greatest weight to those who won't misuse it. You've proven that even when misunderstood, you remain faithful. Even when unseen, you remain obedient. That's why the mantle rests on you now. It recognizes your consistency. Still, there are moments when you wish you could set it down, even for a while. That's natural. Every prophet, every leader, every chosen one has whispered that prayer, Lord, it's too much. Yet every time you fall to your knees, heaven answers softly. It's not too much for you. It's made for you. N4. So learn to rest under the weight, not resist it. The same hand that placed it will sustain you. The mantle isn't meant to break you. It's meant to build the version of you that can carry miracles without pride. And when you feel its heaviness again, when the nights stretch long and the silence feels endless, remember this. It's not punishment. It's presence. The pressure you feel is proof that heaven hasn't forgotten you. It's the pulse of divine trust beating against your chest. Soon, this weight will settle. It will stop feeling foreign and start feeling like identity. You'll move differently, speak differently, even think differently, because you'll realize the mantle doesn't change who you are. It reveals who you've always been. The heaviness will turn into harmony, and what once felt like a burden will become your rhythm. Because carrying heaven's glory was never meant to feel easy, it was meant to feel eternal. And when you finally stand under that weight with peace in your heart, you'll understand it was never there to crush you. It was heaven's way of proving you could hold divine fire without burning out. The mantle doesn't make you greater, it makes you deeper. It teaches you to lead from love, not pride. There are battles you never spoke about, silent wars that raged when no one was watching, the kind that don't leave bruises on your skin, but leave marks on your spirit. These are the midnight battles of the chosen, where your faith is tested not in the public eye, but in the quiet, dark. You felt those nights, the ones where prayer felt like whispering into the wind, where your tears seemed to echo back unanswered. But heaven heard every word. The silence wasn't rejection, it was strategy. Sometimes God hides his presence to strengthen your pursuit. In these unseen wars, you fought thoughts no one knew existed. Doubt, fear, exhaustion, temptation, they've all come for your peace. Yet, every morning you rose again was a victory. You may not have shouted triumphs, but your quiet endurance terrified the darkness more than any loud declaration could. The scriptures declare in Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 12, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." That's what your struggle has been about. It wasn't random, it was spiritual. You weren't fighting people, you were confronting patterns, breaking chains, tearing down invisible strongholds. Heaven trusted you to stand in the gap for generations who never had the strength to fight. Think of David in the fields, long before the throne, alone, unseen, battling lions and bears while others slept. Those battles prepared him for Goliath. The private wars are always the training grounds for public victories. So when you feel surrounded by darkness, remember, heaven is not testing your courage, it's building it. The nights you cried yourself to sleep, they were counted. Every tear, every sigh, every whisper of, "God, help me," was written in heaven's record as worship, because faith that endures in silence is louder than faith that only sings in sunlight. Imagine standing in a desert at night, the sand cold, the stars distant, and yet there's a strange calmness in the stillness. That's how heaven surrounds you, in your darkest moments, quiet, invisible, but constant. You may not see angels, but they've stood beside your bed, shielding you while you slept. Sometimes, the battle is not to win, but to withstand. The enemy's goal isn't always to destroy you, it's to exhaust you into silence. Yet, you kept praying, you kept believing, you kept showing up when everything in you screamed to give up. That's victory. You've learned to fight differently now, not with panic, but with peace, not by arguing, but by trusting. The stronger your spirit becomes, the less noise you need to make. Warriors trained by heaven fight on their knees, not with their fists. There will be moments when the shadows seem louder than your faith. When your thoughts turn against you and your heart feels heavier than your hope, in those moments, remember, the light inside you is not fragile, it's eternal. Darkness can surround it, but can never extinguish it. I once heard someone say, "The devil's loudest roar is just before his defeat." And it's true. Every time your warfare intensifies, it's because breakthrough is near. You are closer to peace than you realize. The pressure is proof that the promise is within reach. If you could see the spirit realm right now, you'd understand why it's been so hard. You'd see angels stationed around you, swords drawn, guarding the territory of your destiny. You'd see how your prayers shift, things you can't yet perceive. You're not fighting alone, you never were. Even when you felt abandoned, heaven was right there, training you to hear the whisper in the wind, to recognize presence without sight. That sensitivity is rare, and it's what sets you apart. The darkness attacks you because it fears your discernment. But don't fear the battle. The very warfare that tried to destroy you is producing the anointing that will sustain you. Oil flows from crushing, power flows from pressure. The nights that nearly broke you are the reason you'll never break again. When dawn finally comes, and it will, you'll realize that every battle was holy. You'll see that God never left the field. He simply stood beside you quietly, letting you discover your own strength in Him. You are not wounded, you are weaponized. You carry the marks of survival. And those marks tell a story of grace that no darkness can erase. And when peace finally replaces the noise, you'll stand taller. Not because the battle vanished, but because you learned to carry calm inside chaos. That's real strength, quiet, steady, eternal. Every scar will glow like silver beneath light, proof that even in war, grace never left your side, it only grew stronger. You've been walking through a season where applause is absent and recognition is rare. The world may not have noticed, but heaven has. Every small act of faith, every unseen obedience, every quiet yes when no one was watching, heaven has recorded them all. You are not unseen, you are secretly celebrated. It's hard sometimes, isn't it, to stay faithful when you feel forgotten, to serve, to give, to pray, when it seems no reward is coming. But God measures greatness differently. He measures it in obedience, not outcome. He crowns consistency, not performance. There was once a young woman who worked tirelessly in a small town. No stage, no spotlight. She cared for people who could offer her nothing in return. She wondered if God saw her efforts, if her prayers made a difference. Years later, a child she had cared for became a leader who transformed the lives of hundreds. She never knew it then, but her hidden work had heaven's fingerprints all over it. That's what it's like for you. The things you do quietly are shaking eternity. The prayers you whisper when you feel weak are altering destinies you may never witness. You are living proof that greatness is born in humility. The Word of God reminds us through Matthew, chapter 6, verse 4. Your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. Heaven sees. That's the truth that must anchor you now. The moments when you chose love instead of resentment, forgiveness instead of revenge, those moments echoed louder in heaven than any sermon could. Your obedience, hidden as it seems, is not wasted. It's growing roots underground. Every act of faith done in silence becomes fruit in the next season. You may not see it sprouting yet, but it's alive. The soil of surrender never fails to produce. Imagine a lantern glowing in a valley while everyone else sleeps. No crowd watches. No one applauds. Yet its light keeps darkness at bay. That's you. You've been holding light in lonely places. And even if the world doesn't see it, heaven celebrates it. I know it's tempting to ask, when will it be my time? But remember this, sometimes God hides you until the weight of your calling won't crush you. He doesn't withhold the platform, He protects your purity. Hiddenness is heaven's safeguard for the chosen. You've been praying faithfully, forgiving repeatedly, showing up quietly, and now heaven is whispering, keep going, because what's unseen by people is never unnoticed by God. Your reward won't just be external, it'll be internal. Peace that stays, wisdom that speaks softly, joy that doesn't depend on outcomes. That's the kind of favor that can't be faked. The applause of heaven outlasts the noise of men. You are being promoted privately before you're announced publicly. The wilderness was never meant to humiliate you, it was meant to purify your motives. When your time comes, the very people who overlooked you will say, "How did this happen?" And you'll know it happened in secret, under heaven's supervision. You may think you're standing still, but in the Spirit, you're advancing. Every yes moves you closer. Every trial strengthens your crown. Heaven's timeline is slower but surer. It never wastes obedience. So, when loneliness whispers that you've been forgotten, remind yourself, you're not hidden, you're being held. Hiddenness isn't delay, it's divine preservation. Take this moment, right now, to affirm what heaven already knows. Comment, "I'm seen below." It's more than a phrase, it's an act of faith. A quiet declaration that says, even when no one notices, God does. It's your way of standing firm in unseen seasons, believing that what's sown in silence will rise in glory. And soon, you'll look back and realize every unnoticed effort was an offering. Every lonely day was a lesson, and every silent prayer was a seed. Because heaven's approval doesn't echo in applause, it resonates in peace. And when that peace finally settles over you, it won't feel like victory in the usual sense. It will feel quiet, steady, as if heaven itself has exhaled through you. The reward of the hidden is always wholeness before recognition. You'll notice it in small ways first: laughter that returns, rest that finally feels deep. I hope that doesn't need proof to stand. These are the signs that heaven's approval has already touched your life. What once felt forgotten now feels fulfilled. And when your time of unveiling arrives, you won't crave validation anymore. You'll walk in purpose without performance, knowing that every unseen moment made you unshakable. That is the beauty of being known by God before being seen by the world. Something is beginning to accelerate around you. What used to take years will start happening in days. The air feels charged, time feels thinner, and divine momentum is gathering speed. You may not understand it fully, but heaven is shifting your story from delay to deliverance. This is what acceleration feels like. It's both thrilling and terrifying. Suddenly, the doors that wouldn't budge swing open. The opportunities you once chased now chase you. People who overlooked you begin to remember your name. It's not coincidence, it's divine timing, catching up to your obedience. You see, waiting seasons are never wasted. Every time you stayed faithful, even when it didn't make sense, you were adding fuel to a fire heaven was preparing to ignite. Now that fire is lighting the path before you. It was proclaimed in the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3. Though the vision tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not delay. That verse isn't poetic, it's prophetic. The waiting was proof of worthiness. God never rushes what's sacred. He hides greatness inside slow seasons, so that when acceleration comes, it won't crush you. You've learned discipline in the desert. Now you'll need it in abundance. Think of an arrow. Before it flies forward, it's pulled backward. The tension you felt wasn't rejection, it was propulsion. The further you were pulled into pain, the farther you'll fly in purpose. Every tear, every setback, every not yet became divine tension preparing your launch. You may have felt forgotten, but now you'll feel favored. What once resisted you will start recognizing you. People will say, "It happened so fast." But you'll know it didn't. It just finally became visible. Heaven has been building this moment in silence for years. And yet, chosen one, I must remind you, acceleration requires awareness. When God begins to move quickly, your discernment must deepen. Not every open door is divine, and not every invitation is instruction. Choose what aligns with peace, not popularity. Picture a river after the rain. It swells, rushing with new power, carrying everything that once stood still. That's you. Heaven's current is sweeping you forward. But your anchor must remain in gratitude, or success will feel like drowning. You'll start noticing divine patterns, meetings that feel too perfect, timing that seems orchestrated. It's not coincidence, it's confirmation. But stay humble. The higher you rise, the quieter you must become. Noise attracts distraction, stillness sustain, blessing. This acceleration is not just about external blessings, it's about alignment, your spirit finally moving at heaven's pace. What once felt delayed now feels right on time, because it always was. The waiting taught you rhythm, and now you're in sync with divine flow. Don't fear the speed. You've been equipped for this. The same God who allowed the slow seasons will steady you in the swift ones. He doesn't just open doors, he walks with you through them. I once heard of a man who labored quietly for years in obscurity. Then, within months, everything changed. He called it the season of divine wind. He said, "It felt like God breathed on my life, and everything I touched suddenly multiplied." That's the same breath that's reaching you now. You don't have to force it. The same grace that carried you through stillness will guide you through speed. Just stay rooted. Stay kind. Stay grateful. Because this new pace isn't meant to impress, it's meant to impact. And now, as you stand at the edge of what heaven has prepared, I won't tell you what to do. I'll simply invite you to honor this moment. When you like, when you share, when you subscribe, don't treat it like a click or a task. Let it be an offering of gratitude, a symbolic step of agreement with the wind that's moving you. It's not obligation, it's alignment. Like a bird spreading its wings when it senses the updraft. You're simply saying, I'm ready to move with the wind. That act small. Cue it. Intentional becomes worship. Because the truth is, heaven never accelerates by accident. It moves when you're ready. And you are ready. The wind is rising. The pace is changing. And everything that once seemed slow is about to make perfect, breathtaking sense. And when the wind finally lifts you, you'll understand why the waiting took so long. Every delay was training your wings. Every disappointment was building your balance for the flight ahead. The air that once resisted you will now carry you. Acceleration isn't chaos, it's choreography. Every second of slowness was heaven's way of ensuring that when you rise, you'll rise steady, graceful, and unstoppable beneath the rhythm of divine momentum. There's a language heaven speaks that isn't made of words. It's formed in patterns, signs, and moments that repeat until you finally pay attention. Some call them coincidences, but the chosen know better. These alignments are divine whispers, translated through the rhythm of your daily life. You've seen it, the same number appearing again and again, a phrase repeating in conversations, a dream that feels too vivid to dismiss. Heaven doesn't shout, it echoes. Every sign carries meaning, not to confuse you, but to confirm you. The spiritual realm is communicating constantly. It's only your awareness that determines whether you'll catch the message or miss it. In the stillness of your spirit, heaven speaks, not through noise, but through knowing. And when your discernment matures, even silence begins to sound like instruction. It is written in the book of John, chapter 10, verse 27, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me." 1. This is what heaven has been training you for, to recognize the voice within the noise, to see God's handwriting in the small details of your everyday, because revelation doesn't always come with thunder and fire. Sometimes it comes with patterns so gentle they almost feel like coincidence. I once knew a woman who began noticing feathers appearing in strange places, one on her car seat, one near her window, one at her desk. At first, she ignored them, dismissing them as random. But one day, after a prayer for clarity, she found a feather resting on her Bible at the verse about angels attending those who trust in the Lord. That's when she realized heaven had been speaking all along, using the language of the natural to reveal the supernatural. You've experienced it too, haven't you? That strange sense of alignment, when something inside says, "This means something." A text arrives just as you think of someone. A verse you haven't read in years surfaces in your mind. Our door closes, only for another to open effortlessly. These are not accidents, they're affirmations. The divine language of signs teaches you trust. It asks you to stop rushing long enough to notice every pattern, every nudge. Every repeat occurrence is heaven trying to say, "I'm here. Keep walking. You're still on course." Oh, this isn't superstition, it's synchronization. The Creator who designed galaxies also arranges moments in your timeline. He weaves symbols into your story so that faith becomes not just belief but awareness. The sky might look ordinary, yet one glance at its patterns tells sailors where to go. In the same way, heaven paints subtle constellations in your life to guide you. The key is learning to look up instead of around. Sometimes you'll see repeating numbers, signs of timing and confirmation. Sometimes you'll hear a familiar phrase or lyric echo at just the right moment. Don't dismiss it as coincidence. When your spirit is in tune, everything becomes a message. Heaven's voice doesn't just come in sermons, it comes in patterns of grace scattered through your days. But here's the caution: signs are confirmation, not substitution. They accompany faith, they don't replace it. God uses signs to affirm your steps, not to eliminate your need for trust. The moment you seek signs more than His presence, the meaning fades. The message was never in the symbol, it was in the relationship it represented. Think of a compass. It doesn't create direction, it reveals it. The signs you see around you are spiritual compasses pointing you toward destiny. But you still have to walk. You still have to obey. If you've been noticing patterns lately, it's not your imagination. Heaven is active in your timeline. The coincidences are divine reminders that you are not navigating this life alone. Every detail of your journey is being orchestrated by hands far wiser than your own. Learn to respond, not react. When heaven shows you something twice, pause it. When peace rises within you without explanation, stay. When chaos follows a path, withdraw. This is how you walk by divine signals instead of worldly assumptions. And soon, when you look back, you'll realize how delicately everything was aligned. Every repeated number, every subtle confirmation, Every random encounter, they were all breadcrumbs leading you home to the center of your calling. The language of heaven was never meant for your ears, it was meant for your heart. And when your heart listens, even ordinary days become divine dialogue. And in that awareness, peace replaces confusion. You no longer chase meaning, meaning finds you. Because once you learn heaven's language, even silence feels sacred. And every step forward becomes a conversation between your soul and the divine. The turning has begun. You can almost feel it, the quiet, steady reversal of everything that once seemed unfair. The same tables that were used to exclude you are now being rearranged in your favor. Heaven is flipping what the enemy meant for harm and rewriting the outcome with divine precision. This isn't revenge, it's restoration. The justice of heaven doesn't come to embarrass your enemies, it comes to vindicate your purpose. Every false word spoken against you, every overlooked effort, every tear shed in secret is now becoming evidence in heaven's court. The scriptures record in the book of Nahum, chapter 1, verse 7, "The Lord is good, a stronghold in the day of trouble, and he knows those who trust in him." And he knows. That one word carries the weight of comfort and confidence. God has seen every injustice that touched you. He didn't ignore it, he stored it. And now, the season of divine exposure and reversal begins. You may have noticed subtle shifts already. People who once dismissed you are now reaching out. Conversations that once excluded you are now inviting you in. Even your name is being mentioned in rooms where you've never stepped foot. That's not coincidence, that's correction from heaven. You've walked through a long season of being misunderstood, sometimes even misrepresented. But heaven doesn't let lies last forever. When truth finally stands up, it doesn't need to shout. It simply shines, and darkness has no defense against light. Think of Joseph in the prison, betrayed, forgotten, but still faithful. One day, the same people who confined him had to call for him. That's what divine reversal looks like. You won't need to prove your worth. Your worth will summon recognition. This season will teach you that vindication isn't about proving others wrong. It's about God proving himself faithful. He is about to restore your name, your confidence, and your peace. And the beauty of it all, he'll do it so gently that you won't even feel vengeance, only gratitude. Sometimes, God doesn't clear your name immediately because he's strengthening your patience. But once his timing arrives, everything shifts suddenly. The one who whispered lies about you will be silenced, not by shame, but by the evidence of your peace. Imagine a sunrise after a long storm. The clouds didn't disappear, they simply moved aside. The light was always waiting. That's how this restoration comes, not as noise, but as clarity. You won't need to chase apologies or explanations. The peace on your face will speak louder than any defense ever could. Divine exposure is not about others falling, it's about you standing. You were never meant to fight for revenge. You were meant to rise with grace. Heaven's justice works like a river, steady, patient, and unstoppable. It may wind slowly, but it always reaches the ocean of completion. You are entering a season where what was lost will be returned, not always in the same form, but always in better measure. The same rejection that once hurt you will now reveal your redirection. The same pain that buried you will become the soil of your rebirth. So, don't worry about the ones who wronged you. They were part of the process. not the final picture. God is a master artist. He uses even the darkest strokes to highlight His glory. If this message resonates with the ache you've carried, if something inside whispers, "Yes, that's me," then take a moment to seal it with a quiet act of agreement. Comment Tisha me'ot tish'im v'tisha below. It's not superstition, it's a symbol of completion, of cycles ending and grace beginning again. When you write it, let it mean, I release the past and receive my peace. And the turning has already begun. You won't need to chase what's yours. It's circling back, refined by time and wrapped in divine favor. And when it returns, it will not look the same, it will look redeemed. What was once broken will come back whole. What was once bitter will return sweet. That's how heaven works. It doesn't simply replace, it restores with refinement. You'll realize that the people who left, the opportunities that slipped away, and the seasons that confused you were all part of divine choreography. Heaven was protecting your integrity while preparing your elevation. Had those things stayed, they would have limited what God is doing now. So stand tall, in peace. Don't look back for validation. Look ahead for vision. You are stepping into a chapter where divine justice isn't loud, it's luminous. The proof of your redemption won't be in revenge, but in radiant peace that no man can counterfeit. When the door finally opens, it won't creak with effort, it will swing wide with grace. You won't have to force it, beg for it, or prove yourself to step through it. Because when heaven decides it's time, no human hand can hold back what was written with your name. You've stood before many doors in your life, some slammed too quickly. Some stayed closed long enough to make you doubt your worth. But each one taught you something. Timing is sacred. Heaven doesn't operate by impatience. It moves with intention. The waiting has been your teacher, shaping your humility so you could carry authority without arrogance. As recorded in the book of Revelation, chapter 3, verse 8, See, I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut. End quote. That single line carries eternal assurance. You don't have to fight for access to what God has already assigned. The doors meant for you will recognize you. They will open because of alignment, not effort. There is a kind of peace that comes when you realize you don't have to knock on every opportunity. You simply walk in rhythm with obedience. And what's meant to be yours unfolds at the right time. This is what it means to walk through divine doors, not driven by desperation, but drawn by destiny. I once met a man who said he used to chase every opportunity, terrified that missing one meant losing everything. But the more he forced, the more doors resisted him. One day, after a long season of exhaustion, he stopped striving and simply prayed, God, if it's Mina, make it clear. If it's not, close it fast. Within weeks, peace replaced panic, and the right door appeared effortlessly. That's what divine timing does. It moves without manipulation. Sometimes, the greatest miracle isn't that the door opens, it's that you've grown enough to walk through it without fear. What was once intimidating now feels like invitation. The hallway of hesitation transforms into a corridor of courage. Walking through an open door requires discernment. Not every opportunity is ordained. Some doors glitter but lead to compromise. Some appear promising but drain your peace. The mark of a true divine door is this: it carries peace, not pressure. When heaven opens something for you, you won't feel rushed, you'll feel ready. Imagine a key crafted for only one lock. It doesn't fit everywhere, but when it meets the right door, it turns effortlessly. That's what this next season feels like. Every no you faced before was confirmation that you were being shaped for your true yes. No, it's normal to feel hesitation before stepping through. Fear always tries to echo before faith. But remember, heaven doesn't call the qualified, it qualifies the called. The door opening before you isn't about your perfection, it's about your preparation. As you stand before it, you might notice how different you've become. The person who once begged now believes. The one who once questioned now understands that what's meant for them doesn't require striving, only surrender. Don't overthink the threshold. Just walk through. The act of stepping forward is itself an act of worship. It's saying, I trust you enough to move. Heaven moves with movers. Miracles meet momentum. Every divine door comes with a change in atmosphere. When you cross through, relationships will shift. Priorities will realign. And peace will take new shape. That's not loss, it's leveling. You're rising into responsibility that matches your maturity. You'll know it's a God door when the burden feels light. The timing feels right. And the outcome gives glory beyond your own gain. God never opens what He won't sustain. This next chapter will surprise you with ease. What used to exhaust you will now feel natural. The doors that once resisted you will respond because your spirit finally speaks the same language as heaven's will. You'll walk not by effort, but by grace. And when you look back, you'll understand why every previous door had to close. It was heaven protecting your path to the one that truly belonged to you. The waiting wasn't wasted. It was alignment. And now, all you need to do is step forward into the space that has been waiting for you all along. And when you finally cross that threshold, you'll feel it as sudden lightness, a quiet knowing that this is where you were always meant to be. The air itself will seem to recognize your arrival. You won't have to announce it. Destiny has its own resonance. When the right door opens, even silence celebrates. You were never meant to echo the noise of the world. You were meant to release a sound that heaven recognizes as your own. The time for blending in has ended. The silence that once kept you safe has become too small for the voice you now carry. This season is calling you to become a voice, not an echo. In every generation, God raises people who don't just repeat what's already been said. They speak from revelation, from the deep well of encounters only they have known. You are one of those voices. Your story, your scars, your survival, they've all become syllables in the language of heaven. As written in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 1, verse 9, Then the Lord put forth his hand and touched my mouth. And the Lord said unto me, Behold, I have put my words in your mouth. And that's not just an ancient event, it's your reality now. You've been touched by divine purpose, equipped to speak truth that cuts through confusion. But before God ever released your voice, He refined your heart. That's why you walked through so many seasons of silence. Heaven was tuning your frequency. There was a time you held your words back because you feared they would be misunderstood. You chose peace over truth, comfort over confrontation. But now the spirit inside you won't let you stay quiet anymore, because silence, when you're called to speak, becomes disobedience. Imagine a lighthouse refusing to shine because it fears being noticed by the storm. Absurd, isn't it? And yet, How often do chosen ones dim themselves to avoid discomfort? You are not called to silence the light, you're called to direct it. The sound of your voice carries more than opinions, it carries deliverance. Every time you speak truth in love, you shift atmospheres. You remind those listening that clarity still exists in a world that glorifies confusion. I once met a woman who said she never thought her words mattered until one night she comforted a stranger in a store parking lot. Months later, that same person wrote to her saying, "Your words saved me that night." That's the power of a heaven-sent voice. It doesn't need a platform to echo, it just needs obedience to speak. Your sound may not be loud, but it will be lasting. God doesn't need volume, He needs authenticity. You don't have to speak like anyone else. Your authority is hidden in your originality. The world already has echoes, it's starving for real voices. And make no mistake, being a voice doesn't always mean speaking publicly. Sometimes it's standing for truth in a quiet room. Sometimes it's saying no when compromise would be easier. Sometimes it's speaking hope into one discouraged heart. Every act of courage is a sound heaven hears. The more you speak, the clearer your sound becomes. Heaven polishes your tone through obedience. You learn when to roar and when to whisper. You discern when to speak to nations and when to comfort one's soul. Your calling is not to perform, it's to proclaim. And yes, your voice will challenge people. Truth always does. But don't shrink because of resistance. Even Jesus faced silence and misunderstanding. Yet his words still carried through centuries. Your voice carries the same eternal resonance when it's fueled by heaven's breath. This is why your seasons of quiet were so long. They weren't punishment. They were preparation. Heaven was clearing out the noise, so your words could pierce through distraction with clarity. You were learning how to listen before you could be trusted to speak. Now, as the world grows louder, your calling becomes clearer. You're not here to compete with noise, you're here to change its frequency. When you speak, fear trembles. When you declare truth, deception loses its grip. That's the authority of a voice aligned with heaven. So rise in confidence. Speak with grace. Let every word you release carry the fragrance of peace and the fire of conviction. You're not an echo, you're an instrument. And the world is about to hear the unmistakable sound of someone who knows exactly who they are. And when your voice finally finds its rhythm, it won't sound like anyone else's. It will carry weight, not from perfection, but from authenticity, the sound of someone who's walked through fire and still chose love. Your words will travel further than you imagine, touching hearts you'll never meet. That's how heaven works. It multiplies impact beyond your reach. You'll speak, and atmospheres will shift. People will feel peace they can't explain. I hope they didn't expect. Because your sound doesn't entertain, it awakens. And as heaven listens, you'll realize your voice was never just for others. It was the key to your own freedom. The moment you spoke truth, you stepped into destiny. You've walked through the wilderness, carried the mantle, endured the silence, and stood through the storm. And now, heaven whispers what your spirit already knows. The season of crowning has come. This isn't about jewels or thrones. It's about the visible reward of invisible endurance. The faithful remnant is being crowned, not because they were perfect, but because they didn't quit. You are part of that remnant. You didn't just survive, you stayed soft. You stayed kind. You stayed believing. That's why heaven has marked you. Every scar you carry will shine like gold under divine light. You thought you were forgotten, but you were being fitted for glory. The scriptures remind us through 2 Timothy, chapter 4, verse 8. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me. This crown is not made of gold, it's made of grace. It's the quiet authority of someone who's been tested and found true. It's the peace that stays when everything else fades. The chosen ones are not crowned in front of crowds, they're crowned in stillness, where heaven can place honor without pride. Think of a soldier returning home. Battle-worn, but victorious. The armor may be dented, the body tired, yet the eyes carry fire. That's what you look like in the spirit right now. Heaven sees the weight you carried when no one thanked you. The prayers you prayed that no one heard. And heaven says, now is your time. And through, crowning is not about arrival, it's about readiness. You've matured through pain, learned through silence, and loved through loss. The glory resting on you is evidence of what you've endured faithfully. I once met a man who said, my reward isn't that I finished the race, it's that I still believe in the one who sent me. That's the crown, the unshakable faith that remains when everything else falls away. And as heaven crowns the faithful, something else happens. Those who mocked your obedience will witness your elevation, not to humiliate them, but to reveal that God's promises never expire. You are living proof that endurance is never wasted. Picture this: a garden after heavy rain. The soil is dark, the air fragrant, and from that damp earth, something begins to glimmer new life. That's your crown manifesting. It's not loud, not boastful, just radiant. It draws light, not attention. This is not the time to shrink back or apologize for your anointing. Wear your crown humbly, but confidently. It's not a symbol of superiority, it's a testimony of survival. Every chosen one who wears it carries the fragrance of fire and the shine of surrender. You may still feel unworthy. You may wonder, why me? Because crowns aren't given to the flawless, they're given to the faithful. Heaven doesn't look for perfect vessels, it looks for available ones. And you stayed available when it would have been easier to walk away. The world crowns popularity, but heaven crowns perseverance. What you've endured quietly will now be honored openly. This is your season of recognition, not from people, but from purpose itself. So pause for a moment. Breathe. Feel the invisible crown resting gently on your spirit. It doesn't weigh heavy, it fits perfectly, because it was designed only for you. And now, if your heart feels that soft, stirring, if something inside you says, yes, this is my time, then let this moment be sacred. Don't move too quickly. Let gratitude wash over you. Then, as an act of acknowledgement, not performance, allow your next step to be symbolic. When you like, when you share, when you comment, when you subscribe, let it not be duty, but devotion. See it as lifting your crown to the light, saying quietly, I receive this. I honor this. I choose to shine. It's not about numbers, it's about resonance. It's a way of joining heaven's celebration with your own heart's agreement. Because crowns were never meant to be hidden, they were meant to reflect light. And when yours shines, others will find courage to believe again. So wear it well. Chosen one, walk gently, speak kindly, and let your life become proof that endurance is beautiful. The crown is not the end of your story, it's the beginning of your reign in grace. And as you walk forward wearing that unseen crown, heaven smiles. Every step you take now leaves traces of light for those still learning how to believe again. Your story is the spark, your endurance, the flame. Let your life burn gently, a living reminder that faith, once tested, always shines brightest. There are moments when heaven grows quiet, not because it has turned away, but because it is giving you space to decide. Every chosen one faces a threshold where mercy still stands open, but the next step must be taken by will, not wonder. This is that moment. You can feel it in your spirit, the weight of decision. Heaven isn't asking you to be perfect, it's asking you to be willing. There's a fine line between delay and disobedience, and many never notice when they cross it. But you do. That's why you've been restless. Grace is generous, but it is not endless. There comes a time when the same door that was open begins to narrow. The light still shines, but it's softer now, urging you to move while it's still within reach. This isn't fear, it's invitation. As written in the book of Hebrews, chapter 3, verse 15, today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. Those words carry both gentleness and gravity. God speaks with tenderness, but time answers with truth. Every delay feels harmless until it becomes distance. Every hesitation feels safe until it becomes silence. Heaven doesn't want your perfection, it wants your participation. You've been standing between what was and what will be. Looking back feels familiar. Looking forward feels uncertain. Yet every divine story begins with one act of trust. The unknown isn't your enemy, it's your next classroom. I once met a woman who said she kept sensing God telling her to forgive someone who'd hurt her deeply. For months, she resisted, thinking she was protecting her heart. But as time passed, her peace began to erode. When she finally released forgiveness, it felt like a floodgate opened. Everything that had been stuck began to flow again. The instruction she delayed was the breakthrough she'd been praying for. That's how obedience works. It opens doors that prayer alone can't. Heaven responds to movement, not just intention. You've prayed long enough. Now heaven is saying, walk. This isn't about rushing. It's about aligning. The difference between almost and arrival is often just one act of courage. You don't need to know every detail, just the next step. The unknown you fear is already known by the one guiding you. There's a kind of stillness that only comes after surrender. It's not resignation, it's release. When you finally say, I'll go, even if I don't understand, heaven exhales and the way opens. The path doesn't appear until your feet move. Maybe that's what heaven has been waiting for, not more words, but willingness, not louder prayers. But, quiete obédience. The window of grace is open, but it won't stay open forever. Opportunities have lifespans. Seasons shift. Obedience delayed is often destiny denied. This is your moment to choose. Will you stay safe in the familiar, or will you step into the faith that's been calling your name? The edge you fear is not a fall, it's a flight. The ground you think will vanish beneath you is actually the hand of God waiting to lift you higher. The cost of disobedience is rarely sudden, it's subtle. It shows up as frustration, confusion, stagnation. You don't lose your calling in one moment. You leak it through many small compromises. But obedience restores what hesitation slowly drains. Heaven's mercy is a door, but mercy doesn't chase, it calls. Once you hear it, you become responsible for the sound. Every later carries the risk of becoming never. That's why heaven speaks now. While your heart is still soft, you've walked too far and seen too much to turn back. The old patterns no longer fit. The old distractions no longer satisfy. That restlessness you feel is the Holy Spirit rearranging your priorities for alignment. If you could see what's waiting beyond obedience, hesitation would lose its hold. The next chapter isn't punishment, it's promise. Heaven is inviting you into inheritance, not inspection. So breathe. Don't rush, but don't stay still either. Move in faith, however small. The step, because in the kingdom, motion itself is agreement. And when you finally act, you'll realize something extraordinary. Heaven was never testing your ability, it was testing your trust. You were never waiting on God, He was waiting on your yes. And when your yes finally leaves your lips, the atmosphere will shift. Peace will return. Not because circumstances changed, but because you did. Obedience always rebuilds the bridge between heaven and heart. You'll step forward lighter, freer, no longer haunted by hesitation. The moment you move, grace moves with you, proving that surrender was never loss. It was the unlocking of destiny. You've come a long way, farther than you realize. What began as confusion has become clarity. What once felt like endless testing now feels like proof you have been refined, not ruined. This is the revelation of who you are. For so long, you defined yourself by what you lost, by who left, by what didn't work. But heaven never saw you as broken, it saw you as becoming. Every season that felt like an ending was really a transformation. You are the evidence that pain can be purposeful and waiting can be holy. The Word of God speaks in Romans, chapter 8, verse 37. In all these things we are more than conquerors through Him who loved us. That verse doesn't glorify strength, it glorifies survival through surrender. You didn't just conquer external battles, you conquered internal wars. The fear of not being enough, the temptation to give up, the quiet exhaustion that tried to convince you you'd been forgotten. But heaven remembers every time you stood again. You are not the same person who started this journey. You've shed layers of doubt, of dependence, of needing validation. What's left now is authenticity, a soul aligned with its maker. That's the true mark of the chosen, not perfection, but purity of purpose. I once met a man who said he stopped praying for blessings and started praying for wisdom. He realized that true favor isn't found in things, it's found in understanding who you are and why you were created. That's where you are now, standing in identity, not in security. For years, you've been searching for signs that you're on the right path. But look at you, you are the sign. Your life itself is the message heaven has been crafting. You've become living proof that divine timing always makes sense in hindsight. It's strange, isn't it? How the very storms that threatened to drown you ended up teaching you how to walk on water. That's what revelation feels like. Realizing that you were never weak, only unaware of your strength. Everything you've endured was a sacred rehearsal for this recognition. The pain trained your empathy. The silence sharpened your hearing. The rejection refined your discernment. Each wound turned into wisdom, and each delay became direction. You are heaven's paradox, soft but strong, humble but radiant, wounded yet unstoppable. You've become what darkness feared most, someone who knows their worth. Imagine a mirror cleaned after years of dust. For the first time, you see your reflection clearly, not through the lens of failure or fear, but through the eyes of purpose. That's what heaven sees when it looks at you. Reflection, not residue. You were never ordinary. That's why ordinary circumstances never fit. The loneliness you felt was never isolation. It was distinction. God set you apart so that when you finally stepped forward, your light wouldn't blend, it would blaze. Every chosen one eventually reaches this realization. The calling was never about comfort, it was about character. You were never meant to have an easy life. You were meant to have an eternal impact. And now, your spirit understands that truth fully. The world may still misunderstand you, but it no longer matters. Validation is no longer your compass. Vision is. You no longer chase clarity, you carry it. What others see as mystery, heaven calls maturity. When you look back now, you'll see patterns where you once saw pain. Every unanswered prayer was a rerouting. Every silence was strategy. Every goodbye was guidance. Heaven never wasted a single moment. It turned even ashes into architecture. You are the living temple now. Every scar has become a stained glass window, letting light through in colors you never knew existed. That's what revelation does. It doesn't erase your past. It illuminates it. You've learned to move with the quiet confidence of one who knows heaven walks beside them. You speak less, but what you say carries eternity's weight. You dream again, but this time with discernment. You love again, but this time with wisdom. The revelation of who you are isn't just for you, it's for those watching, waiting for permission to believe they're chosen too. Your transformation becomes their invitation. Your courage becomes their confirmation. And one day soon, you'll see the ripple of your obedience spreading farther than your reach, touching hearts you'll never meet. That's legacy, the echo of a life fully surrendered. So, stand still for a moment. Feel the peace that now lives where pain used to. That's not emptiness, it's fulfillment. Heaven's silence has turned into serenity. You are no longer searching for identity, you are standing in it. You are no longer waiting for permission, you are walking in purpose. You are no longer asking, "Am I enough?" Because now you know you were chosen long before you ever questioned it. And now, here you are at the edge of what was and the beginning of what will be. Every word before this one was not just a message, it was a mirror, showing you what heaven always saw in you. Not a mistake, not a wanderer, but a warrior who made it through everything designed to break them. Look back gently. The mountains that once terrified you now look smaller. The nights that once felt endless now glow faintly with meaning. Everything, the pain, the waiting, the loss was a classroom preparing you for clarity. You no longer walk as the wounded, you walk as the awakened. There's peace now, isn't there? Not the fragile kind that depends on circumstances, but the deep, rooted peace of someone who knows they are seen, guided, and chosen. That stillness inside you isn't the absence of movement, it's the presence of purpose. You've heard heaven speak through storms and silence alike, and now the voice within says only one thing: it's time. Time to rise. Time to live like the miracle you've become. So as this story closes, don't see it as goodbye. See it as a handoff from words to action, from listening to living. The message is no longer something you're receiving, it's something you're carrying. And if these words have touched a part of you that still trembles between fear and faith, let your next action be your declaration. When you like, when you share, when you comment, when you subscribe, let it not be routine. It's a reverent nod to the divine conversation that found you. A way of whispering, "I'm ready." And each gesture, each click, each word is like lighting a candle and passing it forward. You're not promoting content, you're extending light. You're joining a chain of souls who've decided that hope must travel, that truth must move, that light must keep expanding. Carry this moment with you. Let your actions echo quietly beyond the screen. Let your presence remind the world that faith still breathes and love still leads. Your journey doesn't end here, it unfolds here. Go forward, crowned in calm, covered in grace, carrying light.